This is the short social media version of this bonus good shit. We'll be talking about, amongst other things, cannabis and how I accidentally became a bondage porn star. But if you want to see the full-length version of this movie, jump to our YouTube channel. That's the 420 Chilli Company, and you will find exclusively the director's cut.
Well, aloha, Mr. White Whale. Yay.
Hello.
Buddy, nice to see you.
Cheers.
Cheers. Here's to much stupidity.
A lot of stupidity.
And I'm a lover of the Netherlands as well, man. I miss it. When I was a young man, I visited the Netherlands, British, in the 90s. Amsterdam was like this heaven as a teenager, 13, 14, 15 years old. And there was naked women in windows and there was drugs coming out of my ears. It was a joy. And I think in those timeframes, I probably visited over a period of 10 years, maybe 4 or 5 times a year. And I think it took me 6 or 7 years before I realized that there was things to see outside of Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And then I discovered how interesting it is over there. For example, first place I ever discovered when I decided to leave Amsterdam was islands, I think in the north, 3 of them, Texel, Wexel, and another one whose name I've forgotten. You know the name of the other one?
Monaco?
Maybe so, yeah. And I was fucking amazed to discover that Amsterdam is in fact like a bubble, a kind of multi-culti, insane tourism bubble. And the rest of the Netherlands is a much, much more conservative place in comparison.
Definitely.
I'm not sure about, sorry.
Like a world city compared to the rest of the Netherlands, which is a pretty tiny country. Oh, yeah.
How do you guys as Dutch people feel about the Amsterdam situation? I mean, I know from visiting with friends, I was there not long ago with an American friend of mine, a very big guy, heavy guy. And I remember walking up the street and him pulling a hash pipe out of his pocket and smoking it as we were walking up Damrak in Amsterdam. And I said to him, for fuck's sake, show a bit of respect to these people here. They're kind enough to give you shops where you can smoke your weed inside of. Don't piss on the law and smoke it on the streets, yeah? As a tourist in the Netherlands, I'm very aware of the bad behavior of tourists. And I guess you guys must get pissed with that stuff, oh?
Well, I personally don't enjoy Amsterdam as much, but the times I've been there you get kind of annoyed with the bachelor parties and the screaming and the day drinking. And I can imagine if you're living there, you're traveling to work, getting your groceries, it can be kind of annoying. But on the other part of Amsterdam, right? So.
No, that's true. That's true. But I must say, as I'm an old man now these days, I'm spending more time in Nijmegen and Rotterdam and Den Haag a lot more. Den Haag was the beginning of a life phase for me when I discovered that I wasn't a psychopath. Was specifically because of Den Haag, yeah. I was about 15 years old, yeah, maybe 16. And so I've always been involved since my late teenage years in the fetish world. I've been fetish modeling and visiting fetish events in Belgium, Netherlands, Australia, America, and so on, But before I was 15, I didn't know that there was such a thing as fetishism. I just thought that I was some kind of psychopath, was what I thought, because I found myself having sort of sexually interesting thoughts involving bondage and S&M and stuff. And I didn't really know that was a sexual preference. So I just assumed, all right, I'm going to grow up to be a serial killer and spend the rest of my life in prison. That was my assumption when I was a kid. And when I was about 15, a friend of mine gave me a video, and it was an S&M video. It was a bondage S&M video. And I had never seen anything like it in my life. And my first reaction was, oh my God, this is normal. I don't have to murder anyone or go to prison for the rest of my life. Do you know what I mean? I can go and find these people. We can do this, and I don't have to live the life of a serial killer. Amazing. And so I got to the end of the video, and the video said that it was produced in a place called Club Dormer, and it had an address, Asterstraat, Den Haag. Yeah. So I went, fuck, I have no idea where is Den Haag, which country it's in or anything, but for fuck's sake, I am going there, was my reaction. And so I immediately did some research. It was pre-internet days, that was hard to do. And I found out where it was, and I got myself a ferry, and I went over there, and I found Asterstraat, and that was very difficult because yeah, there was no internet, you know, and I had no Dutch and stuff. So luckily, Dutch people are highly intelligent, well-trained individuals, and they can speak English. And so they were able to direct me to the Bondage dungeon, the 15-year-old that I was. And I went there, and for the first time, very nervously in my life, I got myself involved in some bondage and sadomasochism, yeah? And there was a beautiful woman. She was gorgeous, blonde lady she was, and she was minimum 30, so double my age, yeah? And okay, I'll tell you something that I shouldn't really say, which is this. So now I know this isn't normal, yeah? At the time, I had no idea. But when we did our thing, she asked me not to wear a condom. Not. Yeah. Right. And I just didn't wear a condom, you know, fair enough. And I never thought about that. And as I got older and I got involved in more S&M and bondage things, I realized it was really unusual for people in their job that you have if you work in an S&M place, really unusual for them not to use protection during sex. And I wondered why. And I discovered the reason a couple of years later. A couple of years later, I was in Rotterdam and I was in a porno shop, yeah? And I found the Club Doma collection in the porno shop from Club Doma in Asterstraat, yeah, including a video of me. They had videoed the session, yep, that's right, and they released it commercially on video under the title Young Master's First Slave Girl. Believe it or not. And so that was when I accidentally became a porn star without realizing it. So that goes back a few fucking years. But then that's a question I have to ask, because we do a lot of work in cannabis activism. Yeah? And of course, now we've got rolling legalization going out across the world. It's a rarity now not to be legalized in some way. Myself, I'm a cannabis patient here in Germany, even though we have very regressive cannabis laws in Germany, which will be changed as, you know, civilization moves forwards. But I wonder about your response as a Dutch guy to it, because you grew up in a situation where there was no taboo around that shit, and you got to watch idiotic tourists doing it stupidly and pass. I would guess that your judgment was not good when you saw that shit. So, I mean, how does it work as a Dutch guy, your relationship with weed? For example, when you're a little kid, yeah? For us, it was first alcohol. We got our hands on alcohol. It was a few years before we got our hands on any drugs or anything. So, I mean, when you kick off as a little kid there, is it then weed that you go to first of all before the alcohol?
Actually, I think here in the Netherlands, we had back then, you could start drinking at 16. So, and people, at least my family was very open about it. So I had my first sip when I was 12. And so alcohol is pretty, you know, a socially accepted drug. So I think a lot of kids still, you know, start with alcohol first. But yeah, weed is like one day away. It's so easy to get, but doing it and it's sort of socially accepted. But I think it depends on which circles you're hanging out, because some people are still against weed and still think that it will lead to the harder drugs, et cetera, et cetera. But I personally think it should be legalized.
Well, I mean, it is. Well, it's not legalized where you guys are. It's gray area, isn't it? It's decriminalized. If I remember correctly, I'm quoting Pulp Fiction right here. If I remember correctly, it's legal to own it. It's legal to sell it if you're a shop, but it's not legal to buy it from anyone if you're a shop. What?
Exactly.
Insanity.
You can't grow it either. I
And
think
you
you can
can't
have
grow it either.
3 plants or something. So it just has to magically appear in the coffee shop, yeah.
So you've got a 3-plant limit on what you can grow over there, basically.
Yeah.
As a person, individual. So how prevalent is weed growing over there? I mean, here where I'm living, it's very, very conservative, yeah, and it's extremely, yeah, backwards in the way it views cannabis. But despite that, I would say every 3rd street, maybe roundabout, I'm guessing numbers here, but I guess around every 3rd street here has a house growing weed in that street. A guy with a box in his house or something like that. Maybe like 1 per 3 streets, 4 streets. When you move away from the more right-wing, more conservative areas like Bavaria, then you get to Berlin and stuff, or Hamburg or Cologne, then I think the numbers are higher than that. But I mean, so amongst your circle of friends, is it generally normal to grow their own weed or not really?
Yeah. When I was growing up, I was living in a different area, and I think a lot of people had like 1 plant, either just for fun, like to smoke it. But there's also a whole lot of, you know, the criminal activity where they have like their entire attic filled with plants. And I think our area of the Netherlands is actually the highest crime rate, with ecstasy and drug labs everywhere. But I think every 3rd street has an actual illegal weed plantation here.
So you're talking about commercial weed plantation, illegal commercial weed plantation, big scale.
Like the entire area of the house filled with weed plants and stuff. Yeah.
And how does it work then with the what do you call it, with the consumption wise over there? Because if you go to like Spain, which now has coffee shops, yeah, you find that over there, the consumption has gone very much in the same direction as the USA and Canada, in the moment things touch on legality, then the market gets widened. And when the market's widened, people then have access to a different variety of things, not just a bunch of weed and maybe some hash, but also good quality shatter, good quality glass and wax, butane waxes, ether waxes, and so on. And then you find when you head to like Barcelona and you go to the coffee shops there, that mainly you've got a very large consumption going on of the healthier cannabis products. So you're talking about strong edibles, and you're talking about vaporizing concentrates. But I mean, in the Netherlands, is that also equally so? Or would it be more kind of exotic to be around waxes and shatters and stuff?
Well, I kind of stopped smoking weed like 10 years ago, so I'm not familiar with the whole scene anymore. But back then it was, it's just hashish and weed. That's it. And I think if you're lucky, you could find some scuff or some resin, but and maybe some more hardcore people will make their own stuff, but they don't sell it in shops here. I think some edibles.
Why
maybe.
did you stop smoking weed? What was your reason?
It didn't do anything for me anymore. It actually sort of gave me anxiety a little bit. I was smoking weed, but I was doing it very obsessively. Like the first thing in the morning, the last thing I do during the day, and it was just like basically I've been stoned for 6 years straight. When it was like, yeah, okay, this is not fun anymore. And I was the kind of person who sit on the couch all day and do nothing.
And this is not the best person to be stoned. Absolutely not. No, that's the problem with it. Well, it's nice to see that you've brought your obsession into the world of hot sauces, my friend. And the rest of you out there, you got to check out this guy's sources, all right? And so that means you have to have a check on these links you can see on the screen, and you are going to be able, I think I'm going to link it, yeah, it's going to be where it is, and you are going to be able to see and buy, I recommend you buy lots and lots of White Whale hot sauces. Also, Tom, thank you for your time, sir. I said ciao. From